Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Lola Adeyemo. She is an executive director and founder of Immigrants in Corporate America, a membership platform empowering immigrant professionals to thrive in corporate America. Welcome to the show, Lola.
Thank you, Ajay. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll learn from you about how one can thrive in corporate America. So, in that backdrop, we'll have our conversation. But before that, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, so that people listening to knows more about who they are listening to.
All right.
Yeah,
Do you want me to go
yeah,
ahead and share that? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yes.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Ajay, and thanks for hosting this amazing resource for your audience. My name is Lola. As I said, I was born and raised in Nigeria. I spent my up to college, finished college, started work in Nigeria, moved to the US for my grad school, and then got my first job in corporate America. Worked in a couple of corporate organizations in the healthcare life science industry. My background is a scientist, but I did a gradual transition into entrepreneurship and diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is now I have a few businesses here in the US.
Right, right. So, what is it? Help us understand exactly from a common person's perspective what you do, what are you trying to do, thriving in corporate America? How does this whole transition happen, and what is it that you are trying to do, especially from a common person's perspective? Aren't people already thriving in corporate America? Those who want to leave, they will leave, and
No, that's and that's exactly the point. They are not. So that was what I thought, right? You got a job in corporate America, great. Life is perfect, and I think my experience and when I started doing the research on this, so I actually started doing the research under a doctoral program, was finding out what my own challenges are and my experiences. I had worked in corporate organization back in Nigeria. And then when I joined corporate America, there was just a different experience for me. A lot of exclusion, a lot of just struggles. And I started talking to other immigrants. They didn't have to be from Africa. I interviewed a lot of immigrant women. I focused my research on women initially when I started it in 2019, immigrant women from different continents, and just asking what is it that we're experiencing, how are we feeling, what is our experience here. And we started to unravel the fact that our cultural background showed up differently in the way we do our work and in the way we advance. So getting a job is not enough. If you want to advance in corporate America as an immigrant, there's a lot of learning and community building that you want to do. So thriving is advancing, but thriving is also being comfortable doing your job, not just getting the job.
of course. So let's understand the challenges. What are the main challenges that anyone who is not born and brought up in America, is from outside, gets into a job in the US? What are the challenges? Someone from Nigeria, someone from India, or from anywhere else. Help us understand from a common person's perspective. I thought it's the big apple. You go there, you get a bite into the apple, and you become immortal in terms of finances, and you become
Yeah,
so rich.
exactly. Yeah, that's what I thought too. But seriously, though, one of the first things, so again, I started exploring this topic from a doctoral researcher perspective. And one of the things that came up as number one challenges is communication. So in corporate America, people first, there's language, there's accents, there's the tone in written language. In corporate America, there's a tone and a language definition through which you communicate best. But if you don't take time to understand and you bring in your communication strategies from your country, there is a chance that you are not going to be understood. that you're not going to be able to get things done if you're dependent on other people, that you're not going to build the right relationships that you need to move ahead. So communication challenge was a big part of it. So written, spoken, right? Not just language. For me, I came from Nigeria and I was an English speaker, English language, and I thought I was good, right? I'm going to America. I've watched all the movies. I speak English, but it's very different. There's um, expressions, there's communications that mean something completely different from your culture. And within the corporate space, corporate America itself has its own language. And then when you're writing, there's a tone in emails. It's not just writing the words. And as immigrants, a lot of people will hide behind writing emails. Every single thing you write emails, but there's another perception that you're given when you write emails for things that you can just walk down and speak about. And then you could either push people away or embrace them with the way you write your emails. So communication was a big one. And of course, I explored a lot of these other areas in my book called Thriving in Intersectionality, Immigrants in Corporate America, kind of broken it down into first is identity, then communication, right? Identity first is who am I associating with? How am I perceived in this place, right? Depending on what region you come from, you might be seen as an expert in one function, or you might be seen as somebody that does not know what they're talking about just by default of where you moved from. So communication, identity and perception, and also career advancement based on hierarchy, right? Back in countries where hierarchy is very important, right? You don't speak when adults are speaking. You don't contribute in a room where different people are. You are in corporate America, you are put on a team to manage somebody that is older than you. It becomes challenging because culturally the person is older than you and you expect more, right? And so all of that caused a lot of stagnation and overwhelm for immigrants in the workplace.
Right. So thriving in corporate America. So does that mean it's a conspiracy? It's not. It's individually a culture. In some places, one or two places, or even in more than several places, there could be. But these are all individuals. We human beings are like that. We will
Yes.
always try to create problems for. Forget about others. We create problems for our own self also. But is it someone who is hampering your progress? Does it happen like that? In some places it may be, but then how do you manage all these things? Because how can organizations help? They also know that they are hiring people from different backgrounds. They are hiring people for their expertise, for what they can bring to the organization. What is it that
Yeah.
organizations can do, are doing, but still there is so much left to be desired?
Yeah.
What is the organization that can do for such
That
employees
they
from
can do.
outside especially?
Yeah, and I like the way you phrase your question, right? There are things that we can do. There are things the organization can do, and that's really the backbone of the work that Immigrants Incorporate does. Is that as immigrants, we are building a community to support ourselves. You need community. A lot of us, when we move from our home country, we lose all of that connection. We lose all of that community and background. Even our degree does not carry the same weight back home as it does in a new space, right? So finding the right communities as an individual, you have a role to play, right? If you get that job, you get into that place and you don't want to stay there without any movement or progress, make sure you find a community to support you, a space where you can ask the right question, get the right tip, whatever that space looks like, depending on what you're looking for, right? It could be professional organizations that are aligned with your function, right? Find the communities that will support you so that you get what you need and you take those learnings into your workplace. But for organizations, there's also a role to play as well, because by default, a lot of times, even though we're hiring from all over, we just expect everybody to adapt and blend in to our culture instead of making an effort to understand different perspectives and encourage people to share their thoughts, share their ideas, right? So organizations can also increase their own education and learning so that they can be more supportive of different cultures. Organizations need to provide the space for these conversations to happen, right? You can, I mean, depending on the size of the company. So, for example, the companies that I worked in before entrepreneurship were thousands of employee, right? 50,000, 60,000, right? So organizations that are hiring from all over, what kind of spaces are you creating in your organization? Are you reviewing your hiring processes to make sure that people are being onboarded correctly? And then after they are hired, how are you supporting their career growth? Right? Some people might not know how to leverage their performance reviews. Some people might not know how to navigate your career portal, right? Are you assuming that everybody knows, or are you making it clear to different people? Because we all speak the same language doesn't mean we interpret things the same way. So make sure you are accommodating for different cultures and understanding.
Right, right. So, Ademo, when you talk about thriving in intersectionality, and that's also the name of the book, what does it mean? What does it mean for someone who has come from outside?
Right. Yeah, and the first part of it is the word intersectionality itself. It's a big word, and when I was writing my book, I was told it's too big. People can't say it. I was like, that's the point. I want people to be curious. I want them to find out what it means. It's a word that was coined to represent the experiences of Black women, right? Talking about
Okay.
being a Black person and being a woman. That was why it was coined, to look at how different minoritized identities were overlapping and causing this very expanded impact. In a very negative way, right? Now it's being used more as a term that explains, all of the different things that we have. I'm a Black person. I'm also a woman. I'm also a mom. I'm also Nigerian, right? There's so many layers to everybody. And instead of looking at this as barriers, how can we look at this as strength so that we can thrive, right? Because the more we think they are barriers, we're trying to suppress it and trying to fit into everybody else. But when we understand that the more layers we have, the more power we have, it changes the way we show up and use those identities so that we can thrive, not just survive, but thrive.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what does your organization do here? Immigrants Incorporate Inc. What does it? How does it help people who are from outside? What does it? What role does it play here? How do people connect with your organization, and what is it that they can expect?
Yeah, so Immigrants Incorporate Inc. is focused on US for now. So you're working in corporate America, but you're from different country. We have a virtual membership platform. It's free to be a member. It's a nonprofit, so people can donate if they want, and they get a tax write-off. But our members are truly members of the course. They are supporting the mission. Our members are also early mid-career professionals who either they've started working in corporate America and they're struggling, right? We provide career development resources. We provide expert support from the lens of an immigrant, right? Our workshop facilitators are immigrants themselves that have built successful businesses, that have spent 20, 30 years in corporate America. So now they are giving back, right? So you get coaching, you get mentoring, you build community. If you are just starting and you haven't gotten your first job, right? And maybe, most of the members that haven't started working are coming in through the student route, right? How do I get my first job once I graduate, right? How do I, you know, bypass the long applications and navigate my visa category to get the job that I want, and then some that are underemployed. So usually when you get to the US, a lot of people would maybe just take the first job you see just to maintain your category, but you have so much qualification. How can we turn all your qualifications into something valuable in corporate America? So you are not working below your qualifications. You're actually leveraging all of your skills. So, we talk about LinkedIn updates. We talked about, we host networking events and development. And then we also provide support for conferences and professional networking, so that all these spaces that are expensive to get into, how can we support you so that you get the right training that you need to advance in your organization?
Right, right. And let's talk about, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Several people may think, that, okay, these are something, that is there for them. But can you look at these things as entitlements, rather something that is there to help people who really need that sort of a understanding and help, and not to make excuse about when you are lacking in something or are not able to fulfill your responsibilities in the right way. Nowadays, a lot of question marks are also coming in on this particular term, even within organizations when we are, and somehow the real context is getting lost for which it was actually devised for. Help us understand, the DEI concept right now. What is it happening? Is it good? Is it not so good in terms of implementation, or people have misused or are misusing it?
I think it's both. So again, one of the images I used for my workshops was of a tree that is growing, right? So there are systemic things that have happened that make some people have more privilege and advantage than others. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done to accommodate some people through no fault of theirs. If they are missing out on some things, right? There are some things that is not giving everybody the same thing, is giving people what they need to get to the same level, while at the same time we're working on the fixing the systems. So diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, there's justice, there's accessibility, right? The whole point is we give people what they need, and sometimes some people need more because we are dealing with years of repression, right? So some people need more in order to move to even the same level as other people. But at the same time, we're working on systems to make sure that there's corrections being made so that ultimately we won't have to give some people more or less. That's a layman's way of explaining it. But essentially, diversity, equity, inclusion is a lot of words that talk about how we make sure that people, humans, are being supported in a way that they need, and also check our systems, check our policies, check our processes to make sure that things are not excluding people by default. Just because we've done it a certain way doesn't mean that it works for everybody, or there's always room for us to widen our lens, notice where we are seeing things um, in a very narrow view, and make change, right?
Absolutely. There's much to learn about all these things from you, Lola, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to learn from you, especially through your podcast and also through your books. So tell us a bit about your book and also about your podcast so that people can learn from there.
Yeah, so the book, I set out to do a doctoral research and explore the experiences of immigrant professionals in corporate America. So I started interviewing immigrants and capturing their voices, and it was going to be my dissertation, but my institution didn't want that topic. Because my doctorate is a business doctorate, and they felt like that was more of a social issue. It wasn't applicable as a business. And so I was encouraged to still gather my research insights, and I turned it into a book. So I wrote a book about what I found, what are the common themes I saw, and so what are some of the solutions, what are some of the creating awareness to some of the issues that I was able to find there. And the book was really a lot of interviews. I interviewed over 50 immigrants who had worked at different levels in corporate America across different industries. And I enjoyed the conversation. It was just a lot of people were willing to talk. Most of them were strangers. I approached them and they said, "Of course, I would love to support." And so we had genuine conversations. And that led to the podcast. So, of course, I had to stop interviews for the book because I needed to go publish. But I realized there's so much around this conversation that we need to continue to bring into awareness. So I actually launched the podcast as Immigrants in Corporate, and I renamed it Thriving in Intersectionality because I realized even people that are not immigrants, the fact that you have multiple intersections creates a different level of challenge. And so it's very helpful to listen to those kind of people about their experiences in corporate America and let them use their own words to describe their experiences. So my podcast guests are immigrants from different countries. They are head of CEOs of different companies. They have roles within corporate America. Some of them are no more in corporate America, but they've had corporate American experience. And so they are able to share, what did I experience? How did I overcome it? And how can somebody who is earlier in their career do something different and better as well.
Wonderful. As I said, there's much to learn from you, understand about all these things, connect with you. What's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, very active on LinkedIn, which is usually the best one that I will see first to respond. But I'm also available via email, lola@immigrantincorporate.org. Sorry, lola@immigrantincorporate.org. And I'm available on LinkedIn as well, Lola Adeyemo.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.